Shanahan.
Or go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Look, if this is just strictly about the amount of time that witnesses are appearing for, I think that we can resolve that. It's important that we have Mark Carney come before this committee. We've seen all of the revelations over the last number of days about Mr. Carney's string of good luck after taking on this role, and it could be the $2+ billion to his friend who operates Telesat. It could be the access to the. It could be that he's now opened the door for Brookfield to have discussions on a scheme with $50 billion on pensions. $10 billion
Mr. Chair,
coming.
just on the amendment, not on the main motion.
Okay, so
If they want to get silly with points of order, what are we doing?
Darren, we give a lot of latitude here. I give you guys as much latitude as I give them. He's talking on the amendment. The amendment says that pursuant to Standing Order 108-1A, the committee called upon Mark Carney to appear for 2 hours, Jenny Byrne and Guratan Singh for 1 hour to testify within 14 calendar days. So, I mean, he can speak about this if he wants, about the amendment. So go ahead, Mr. Barrett. You got the floor.
Like, I understand that they don't want to talk about giving privileged people, liberal insiders, positions where they have all of the power, access to all of Canadians' tax dollars, and none of the accountability that comes along with being a designated public office holder. I understand that that's why they want to obstruct this from happening. And look, if the question is that, they want to include people who aren't Mr. Carney in the motion, who speak at other people's speak at the caucuses of parties that are represented in the House of Commons, well, then we need to add Don Guy. We need to sub-amend it to add Don Guy. We need to include in that sub-amendment Brian Topp. These are federal lobbyists who speak at the caucuses and advise the leaders of the Liberal Party and the NDP. That's very plain. And if having a panel with Mr. Singh, Mr. Topp, Mr. Guy, and Ms. Byrne for 2 hours together to match the amount of time that Mr. Carney comes to appear at the committee for, well, we support that, so long as those witnesses testify only after Mr. Carney has appeared at the committee, and that we don't just end up with the also-rans instead of having carbon tax Carney come before the committee. That if we want to talk about fairness, that would be fairness. So I would put a sub-amendment forward.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Whether you're going to do that or not.
So,
okay.
The motion needs to be sub-amended, and the effect of the sub-amendment is going to be to include Don Guy, Brian Topp, and Guratan Singh with Jenny Byrne on a panel together, invited to appear after Mark Carney has appeared. So we're going to have to take the most current copy of the motion and include this proposal in it. But since we're having a conversation about fairness, we've got Topp and Guy, who are federal they run a lobbying shop. If we want Ms. Byrne, who's not a federal lobbyist, to come to the committee just because she's a conservative, we'll invite. We're fine to invite Ms. Byrne.
So I need you to repeat that again for the clerk, Mr. Barrett. What your sub-amendment is proposing, please.
Yeah, the sub-amendment proposes to have Ms. Byrne, Ms. Jenny Byrne, Mr. Don Guy, Mr. Brian Topp, and Mr. Guratan Singh to appear on a panel together, and to be invited after Mr. Carney has appeared at the committee. And look, if the only way that that's going to be palatable to other members of the committee is that their appearance matches in length Mr. Carney's appearance, then 2 hours is fine.
before you comment any further, I want to make sure that I have the language properly distributed. So I'm going to suspend for a couple. Yeah, I'm going to suspend for a couple minutes because it.
Do you have to add it to the end of the meeting?
Yes.
Because we didn't used to.
Yeah. So I am going to suspend to make sure that every member of the committee has a copy of what Mr. Barrett is proposing, because I want everyone to be clear on this. Okay. So I'm.
Yeah, Chair. It's a question about fairness. It was said, and this sub-amendment deals with the main issue, the primary issue, and that's to have carbon tax Carney come before the committee. But it also addresses the desire of Liberal members. They wanted to have Jenny Byrne come to committee. I suppose that's their purview. Ms. Byrne has a business under her name, and they do zero federal lobbying, none, zero. And Ms. Byrne is also not a federal lobbyist, but they want her to come to committee. Okay, we agree to invite Ms. Byrne to come to committee and talk about how she doesn't have any involvement in federal lobbying. But if we're doing that, and it's a question about fairness that was raised by the Liberal members, well, then we need to have Don Guy come to committee. Absolutely. Now, I want to tell you why. And if we look at the St. Albert Gazette, which I think is, and they're publishing a Canadian Press article on 10 September 2024, and this article is titled "Carney Interested in Doing Something, Not Being Something," he says, of advisor role. That's the advisor role he has with the Liberal Party. The Liberals called in, the Canadian Press story says, the Liberals called in veteran strategist Don Guy to give his insights into how to mount a comeback and go up against Poilievre as they prepare for an election year. And Don Guy is a founding partner of a company called GT & Co., which, unlike Ms. Byrne's business, they have a significant federal lobbying practice. Notable clients, Loblaws. Perhaps that's how they got that fridge money from the Liberals. Loblaws, of course, owns Shoppers Drug Mart, the Canada Bread Company, which, as we know, had to plead guilty, or did plead guilty, to price fixing during a food price inflation and cost of living crisis. CN Rail, we know that the concerns there that caused a fracture in the confidence and supply agreement, the coalition with the NDP. The government seemed to have got a real nudge to get to binding arbitration, and one might wonder if that came from Mr. Guy, who is a federal lobbyist for CN Rail, and but also Airbnb, which the Liberals and the NDP have both accused of making the housing crisis worse. These are the clients of the individual, Mr. Guy, who is a federal lobbyist who was speaking at the taxpayer-funded Liberal caucus retreat. So let's get real here. Let's talk about fairness. Let's have Mr. Guy come before committee, and he can sit next to Miss Byrne, because that's who the Liberals want to have come to committee. Now, Mr. Guy employs the former director of caucus services and operations for the Liberal Research Bureau, a 5-year tenure Ms. DeWolf had, as well as other connected, well-connected Liberals. As Mr. Guy, also as the owner of Polera, He employs Dan Arnold. Dan Arnold, also a fixture at taxpayer-funded Liberal caucus retreats. This is Don Guy, the federal lobbyist, who sits in the room with the Prime Minister, his cabinet, his caucus, these Liberal members behind closed doors advising them and representing his clients simultaneously, his clients being Airbnb, who the Liberals have said made the housing crisis work, CN Rail, the Canada Bread Company, who pled guilty of price fixing, and Loblaws. Whew. I think that if we're getting fair, let's get fair. Let's get fair, and let's have him come before the committee. Now, along with Mr. Guy, we should include Brian Topp. He is the co-founding partner of GT & Co. And let's talk about, again, all of those examples that I gave about federal lobbying that's done by that company. Companies who have pled guilty of price fixing. Companies the Liberals have accused of exacerbating the housing crisis in our country. Companies that they've accused of gouging consumers. So, but who is Mr. Topp? Now, Mr. Topp is a noted New Democrat, former chief of staff to Rachel Notley, and he's got these connections. He is the employer of that same former Liberal Research Bureau director, responsible for caucus services and operations. So Topp and Guy should be sitting in seats 15 and 16, and we can save seat 17 for Miss Byrne, and then in seat 18, we should have Gurtan Singh come, because we know that the NDP leader has said that he has him on his arm for media scrums and for advice, and that he's a lobbyist for Metro.
Right.
Metro, which barely gets a mention from the NDP leader when he's talking about grocery giants. It's funny. It's funny. I wonder why we don't hear much mention of Metro.
It's weird.
It's highly suspicious indeed. Some might say. And so we want to see Topp and Guy and Singh and Miss Byrne. The difference, of course, with Miss Byrne is that she's the only one who's not a federal lobbyist. But they want to have her, and they want it to be fair. So let's be fair, and let's have them come here, and they can all appear on a panel together. But there's a couple important points in this motion, and that's that these individuals don't come before the committee. The invitations are not to be furnished to them until we've had Mr. Carney appear, because Mr. Carney's ducked committees before, and that's not acceptable that we don't have him come first. But if we're going to have the conversation about federal lobbying, we can deal with the many issues with the many conflicts of interest with carbon tax Carney, questionable practices with respect to lobbying. How did Brookfield get in the mix for what's going to be very lucrative time? How is it that their stock price hit 6-month highs when one of their subsidiaries, the largest private mortgage insurer in Canada, is going to benefit from a Liberal government announcement? And all of these things happened. His buddy at Telesat getting a $2 billion loan for satellite internet services that doesn't have any satellites and isn't providing any internet service. How did all of that good fortune land on all these people who are just happen to be connected to Mr. Carney in the hours that the ink's just drying on his agreement to become the de facto finance minister after Justin Trudeau's PMO said they didn't have confidence in Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister and deputy prime minister? How did that all come to happen? What did Mr. Carney have to give up for that? Well, we've seen that he's now sending out fundraising letters for the Liberals. So we hope to have support. We hope to have support from other members. We wanted to talk about fairness. This is fair. We're saying that the Conservative that's been suggested, that she ought to appear alongside the federal Liberal lobbyists who've been in the halls of power, who've been in the rooms behind closed doors when decisions are getting made, when strategy is being charted for the government and for their coalition partner. That's incredibly important. So when we have someone like the chair of Brookfield Global, this $1 trillion arch capitalist everything company, we hope that we can do whatever it takes. We can count on the NDP to do what it takes to bring Mr. Carney here to answer questions, answer for how he's enriching his friends in exchange for raising money for the Liberals. And we hope that the issue of fairness that was raised by the Liberal members, that's been addressed here. So let's see Top, Guy, Singh, and we can have Ms. Byrne alongside them, though she's not a federal lobbyist and they do federal lobbying. Okay. I think there was a concern that they were going to appear for less time than Mr. Carney, and I think that's addressed as well. We'll have that panel for 2 hours. And this panel is going to occur after that invitation. Those invitations will be sent out after Mr. Carney comes. The most important thing isn't about protecting people who share the party affiliation. It's about accountability and transparency. It's about restoring Canadians' confidence. So let's put it plainly. We want carbon tax Carney here. And we think that the poison pill the Liberals think they put forward about having Ms. Byrne come, we'll make sure that the invitation is hand delivered. Will they do the same to their strategists? To the NDP, will they do the same to their strategists? Let's see. Let's see who's interested in fairness and accountability for Canadians, and who's actually looking to circle the wagons and protect their insiders who've had that privileged access behind closed doors while lobbying for their federal clients. Let's see. The opportunities here for everyone. They just need to reach out and take it.